Did he make a good champion for the WWE's identity of a heavyweight champion at the time?
It depends on how you look at it, you know. I mean, I'm kind of baffled when people tell me that they think Ric Flair was the greatest wrestler of all time. Even though I'm a big fan of Ric's and I know he had a real hard work ethic, I mean, I was not convinced ever that he was the greatest wrestler that people, or as great as people thought he was.
Well, let's explore that. Why do people think he's the greatest champion? What are the reasons you hear?
Because he was a flamboyant character.
Charisma,
and he was. But as far as working in the ring, I found him, I wouldn't say ancient, but kind of a whole different mindset to what my generation was all about. He was locked into the 70s and couldn't break out of that.
In your personal philosophy, give me a percentage that you would weight one's charisma, work on the stick, look, kind of the stuff not related to in-ring work, versus what percentage should be what the guy does between the ropes.
Well, the way I always summarize it like this is like, there's 3 categories to being a great wrestler, and if you got 10 points in each category, one category is your look, how you look, and your presence when you walk in the room, when you walk out to the ring. You know, whether you're King Kong Bundy or you're Andre the Giant or you're Hulk Hogan, there's a certain look that when you walk and you see him, you go, wow, you know. And there's lots of wrestlers that have all kinds of warrior, or, you know, it takes a lot to have a great look. Some wrestlers, it just could be their size or what they're, you know, what they've been blessed with is from growing up or whatever. But I mean, the next category is your actually workability, whether you can actually wrestle. And if you got 10 points in that category out of 10, how do you rate? And the other category would be your promos and how well you can sell yourself, your ability to sell yourself as this commodity that you're trying to sell. And you take all 3 of them and you mix them together, and where you fit in the wrestling world, I would base it on that ratio. Is how do you size up out of 30? You know, and I'd say like Hulk Hogan was a 9 out of 10 promo, 9 out of 10 look, 1 out of 10 wrestler. You know. And you look at Dynamite Kid, you know, he was a 0 out of 10 promo, but he was a 9 out of 10 wrestler, and he had a 7 or 8 out of 10 look, you know. And even in my own case, I think that, you know, probably my weakest area was my promos. I was probably, you know, maybe in my best days, I was maybe a 7 or 8 or 6, 7 or 8 or somewhere in there with the promos. I could do well with when I had a good issue to talk about, like in '97. My look, you know, I wasn't 6'4", I wasn't 6'8", I didn't have 25-inch pythons, and I didn't have, you know, I wasn't 8 feet tall. And I'm your basic wrestler. I was 6 feet tall. I was 235 pounds. I was 235 pounds when I started, and I was 235 pounds when I was champion. You know, I would say I was, you know, a 7 or 8 out of 10 on my look. I had a decent look, and I had the pink and the black was kind of cool, and the sunglasses, and it was different than Hogan and anyone else. There wasn't a lot of Bret Harts that came down the pike before I came along. So I was original, and so then it's like, how good was my wrestling ability? And I think in that category, I think I was as close to being a 10 out of 10 as you. I made very few mistakes in the ring.
And maybe it also depended a little bit on what decade you worked in as to which of those 3 columns was weighted more than another. So, you know, if I see a Billy Graham or even Hogan in the early 80s.
Yeah, well, it depends on what kind of fan you are. I mean, as a fan, you know, I was impressed by good bodies. You know, there was lots of good bodies that came through my dad's territory, including Billy Graham. But I wasn't about the bodies. As a fan, I was about the workers. Okay, you give me a Harley Race over a Billy Graham any day. Like I wanted my wrestling to be real. I wanted it to look real. I wanted it, and I liked them to be, you know, I liked them to look like athletes and, you know, sell themselves like athletes. And that was always inclined what worked well with bodybuilding, because they were muscle guys, because they looked like athletes and stuff, and they were impressive guys. And I watched a lot of big guys lift weights and stuff, and was really impressed by them. But I mean, to me, I was always more fascinated with the guys that could do the really intricate moves. I'd rather watch Billy Robinson than Hulk Hogan.
Gotcha. How was Flair's and Vince's relationship in this short time?
Well, you know what? I think there was a lot of hopes pinned on Ric. And again, I might be wrong, because I was kind of just clawing to get up into that top echelon. And there was a big shift, and within a matter of time, I was in that top sort of echelon of knowing what's all going on, and you're on the top and you can look down. But in those days, I was still just about there. But what was going on with Ric is, I think it was just the tough job of having to fill Hogan's shoes. And that scandal rocked everything. I mean, the steroids were a dirty word in the world and everywhere, in the media and everywhere. So it's like wrestlers had been tainted with that Hogan rush and steroids, and how none of us were athletes, we were all blah, 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 blah. And it really affected everything, and business really tapered off. And Ric got thrown the football, and no one can ever take away from Ric that he didn't work hard. He worked hard every night. He would give you everything. He'd give you his heart and soul out there, and he'd come back drenched in sweat. And, but I think the matches were lacking. They were, for a lot of us wrestlers and fans included, I think it was like, it's the same old show. We've seen all this stuff before.
But not aware of any strain between Vince and Ric?
No, but I do remember later on, skipping ahead to I think it was probably not long after SummerSlam. It was a TV taping, and we did a Saturday night main event, I think, in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I do remember, because it was a Saturday night main event, that there was quite a lot of counseling with Vince, and closed door sessions with Vince and Randy and Ric working out their match and getting it all set. And anyway, I just remember whatever. I think I was on the same main event. I might have worked with Papa Shango or somebody, but I worked with somebody, and I just remember when Ric and Randy went out, when they came back through the curtain after the match, Vince went ballistic on both of them and told them that they had to go right back out and do the whole entire match over again the way he told them to do it, and that he was furious. And they both walked right out. They started the match over again, and they had the whole intros again, and they did the whole match over again. And I can just remember Vince throwing his headset down when they came back through the second time, and he's like, fuck it, just get out of here. They did this exact same match that they did 10 minutes before, and they didn't do any of the stuff, apparently, that Vince had specifically told them to do. And I think that was the death knell for Ric. That was when they went, this guy can't do what we need him to do, and we need someone that can. And how they picked me, I'm not sure.